War. Elephants. War elephants. This combination is cooler than ice cream and cake and sounds better than Sonny and Cher. Also, a disclaimer, no elephants were harmed in the filming of this video. Now let's dive into this amazing war elephant coin from Gibraltar as we assess this coin and answer the question on if it's right for your collection. Does it hit the mark on historical and cultural relevance? We're going to find out here on the Culture of Currency. Welcome back, one and all, to your home for world silver coins and the stories behind the images on your coins. Today we have an amazing coin that I picked up recently, but before we get to that, remember that I have a giveaway video that I just posted, and it is very easy to be eligible to win. Just watch the video and comment with your answer to my question. That's it. You could be walking away with this vintage round from the North Star Mint, which operated in Los Angeles, California in the 80s. Now back to our coin. To assess this coin correctly, we first need to talk about Gibraltar so we can assess if there's a culturally significant aspect to the image on our coin, as that plays into our 60-point scale. Many of us have heard about the Straits of Gibraltar, and some of us could point to it on a map. The Straits of Gibraltar once were called the Pillars of Hercules and refer to the small section of ocean and land that connect the Mediterranean and the Atlantic Ocean. As you know, the Mediterranean was a hotbed of activity in ancient times, so maintaining this area would be crucial for trade and control. The two nations that are in the midst of this currently are Spain and Morocco, but if we zoom in, and I mean really zoom in, to the Iberian Peninsula, we can see a much smaller peninsula. This is about 10 times the size of the National Mall in Washington, D.C., and this is called Gibraltar. Long story short, this is an area under Greater British influence, and as wars and treaties over time commanded. There was a vote not too long ago to see if locals wanted to be incorporated into Spain or stay under British influence, and it was overwhelmingly on the side of the Brits, so it has stayed that way. This land also was vitally important during World War II, as it would have been fallen under Axis forces who could then control who goes and comes from the Atlantic to the Mediterranean, which could have caused a very hard time in skirmishes in North Africa and beyond. As many of you know, this area in Spain itself has had back and forth history with Islam. The namesake for this land hails from such influence as the Arabic Jabal Tariq is where we get Gibraltar, right? Gibraltar, Jabal Tariq, which means the Rock of Tariq. We English-speaking folk would know it as the Rock of Gibraltar, which juts up from the land some 400 plus meters. This nation is very small and makes most of its money on tourism and table games, but we need to wind back the clock so we can understand if war elephants have a role to play. The research indicates that the use of elephants in war goes back to 1000 BC. The people of the Indus Valley most notably used Asian elephants for combat. These beasts were most effective as they easily could break the lines of the enemy and allow separation of groups into clusters to be dealt with. So how did they get all the way to Gibraltar? There was one very significant event that could tie Gibraltar with war elephants. In North Africa, we have a kingdom called Carthage, made up of mostly Western Phoenicians in the middle of what we would consider the Punic Wars. This was an amazing naval power on the Mediterranean, functioning on the height of Roman authority. This area geographically had advantages of many cultures passing through and used those cultures to develop their skills in land warfare. One thing that they did to separate them from many other adversaries is implement elephants. Some historians suggest stables so large that they could house 300 elephants at capacity, which is a lot of elephant poo. The African savanna elephant is the largest, but could not really be tamed enough to be effective, so the African forest elephant, which is small, and the Asian elephant, which is medium size, were used, and thus the elephant corps of Carthage was created. Elephants were taught to gore with their tusks, trample the enemies, and even grab people with their trunks and hold them over their heads so that riders could finish off the foe. You can see the intimidation these creatures brought. After reading at length for this topic, I also found documentation of organizational strategy for elephants' use in the Punic Wars. Here are two common examples of what would often happen. Here we see the elephants would be front and center, with sentry behind them and cavalry or horseback soldiers on the sides. The elephants would break through any human line brave enough to stand, causing fractures that the infantry could surround and engage. The cavalry would run in flanking the opposition and cause a swift victory. Another common option would have the same grouping before, but then have an additional elephant line in the back where you would have an elephant, then a group of 50 infantry or so, and then repeat the process. The first line of elephants would have helped break the charge before the back line would create channels for the flow and needed reinforcements. As you can see, elephants were quite the foe, but mostly from a psychological sense. As time went by, we started to realize that these pachyderms were quite skittish. There are documents that state that defenses like lighting pigs on fire and setting them free would cause elephants to go nuts and often turn and ran over people on their own side. So we see historically this image is proper, but how does a war elephant enter Gibraltar? There was a leader in Carthage who was a heck of a military strategist named Hannibal. Long story short, he was going to attack Rome, but knew he couldn't successfully attack from the south by ocean. Though Carthage had a great navy, Rome had a lot of its defenses set in the south. Hannibal didn't think that attacking from the west had merit, as it would be an arduous journey, and did what many thought to be impossible. In northern Italy, there is a vast and ridiculous mountain range called the Alps. Rome did not have a strong defense from the north, as it was thought that taking an army over the mountains was not only impossible, but it would take the lives of too many to make it fruitful. Hannibal was just crazy enough to try and find a way. Legend and history tells us that he took a large army, including many elephants, either across northern Africa or by boat to somewhere in the southern Iberian Peninsula. It is not clear to my reading exactly where he landed, but a place like Gibraltar would have been good as any guess, as it has a natural harbor and was used at that time as such. Hannibal, after landing, took his army north and found a path through the Alps with elephants, not woolly mammoths, elephants, and led a charge from the north that led to the capturing of many northern strongholds. So as you see, war elephants are real, and so is this coin that we need to grade. So let's get to it. When I look at the front, I am once again in awe as I see a new nation represented in my growing collection. We have the coat of arms of Gibraltar, which have a distinct representation of British influence. We briefly talked about why that is. I think it is a fantastic image, but there's a lack of texture in the field. Though it is traditional, it's less pleasing, so it scores a 7. When we flip the coin, we see the amazing scene of the war elephant. We have the cloth that protects the sensitive stomach from arrows and the box that holds the soldiers on top. I have no idea what that's called. I read it, but I can't remember. We also see some loose representations of the tools of war. A rider is carrying what looks to be a lance or whip, and the man on back has, well, I don't know what that is he has. It kind of looks like 2 state fair turkey legs. Which brings me to a point on this reverse. It's not the clearest of images. This is produced by the Scottsdale Mint, which usually has amazingly clear images. This is just not one of those. Maybe the loose depiction helps with historical inaccuracies. I love the scene, but I hate the lack of fine-tuned finish. The back scores an 8. Mintage is a strong reason for collectors on this coin. We have an extremely low mintage of 10,000. This low number gives us a 9 out of 10. Now we travel to cultural significance. Gibraltar is tiny, like really tiny. This being said, the amount of events that have happened here documented by history is fairly low. The likelihood that the might of Carthage landed in Gibraltar is plausible, so I cannot detract on that standard. If I was a Gibraltarian, which is an awesome name, I would think that this event would bring relevance and immense pride, so I would score it a 9. The collectability is a very interesting topic. We have a coin depicting war, history, and nature. That is a lethal combination. It also brings in an extremely low mintage. It does have 2 detractions. One is the coin's lack of fine-tuned finish, and if people have problems with animal cruelty, this would be the devil in coin form to them. I think it gets an 8. If this was in a series, I think a 9 would be possible. Our last area is uniqueness. We have a coin that is depicting an elephant, which is common, but a war elephant is not. There's one coin from Niue currently that has this type of a scene, but it's very ornamented and antiqued and would be very expensive as far as a premium goes. And the only others I found are in these ancient Tetra style coins featuring, you guessed it, Hannibal. This scores a 9. Now for our final score and thoughts. This coin comes across the line at a respectable and elite 50 out of 60. The low mintage and theme are extremely attractive, and the detraction is only found in the lack of fine-tuned display. My final thoughts, therefore, are as follows. This is an amazing coin to represent a new nation in my collection. This is a coin that I find joy in, as it invokes the imagination to carve the details that are obscure in view. I think it is right for many collections, and I think stackers are probably going to want to pass this one by, as it would have a higher premium than most regular coins. If you are a history or war lover, it is hard to argue against this coin, as Hannibal is one of the greatest military commanders of history. Thank you so much for watching, and please remember to stay classy and current with the culture of currency.